Hi all, welcome to your second maths lesson of the week. In this lesson, we are going to get fluent, get lots of practice in, where we are looking at percentages again. So, first things first, we just need to make sure that we are super confident dividing numbers by 100. Okay, so let's see if we have a question like this. 500 divided by 100 is equal to. Some of us might know this right off the top of our head. Some of us might know a few tricks to do it. I'm going to teach you not only a trick, but I'm going to teach you why this is the answer. Okay, place value, hundreds, tens, ones. Let me put in the number 500. I know that hundreds are 10 times bigger than tens, and tens are 10 times bigger than ones. So as I go this way, I know that I'm getting 10 times bigger because 10 ones make up 10, and I know that 10 tens make up 100, blah, blah. That's what place value is. We're all super confident with place value. Going back the other way then, of course, what I'm doing is dividing by 10. 500 divided by 100 then. Well, I know that if I divide by 10 and 10 again, that's the same as dividing by 100. So the number that's in my hundreds column is going to get 10 times smaller and then 10 times smaller again. It's going to get 100 times smaller. The amount of place value jumps I need to make, I know from the number of zeros in the question. Let's have a look. If I had 70 divided by 10, so let's have 700 divided by 10 and 700 divided by 100. Let's have a quick look. Hundreds, tens, ones. I'll write out my number 700. To divide it by 10, everything needs to move one place value to the right because everything is getting 10 times smaller. Got 1 0 in 10, everything is getting 10 times smaller. So my 7 needs to move to here. This 0 needs to move to here. And of course, this 0 would move after my decimal point into my tenths. But if I don't have anything after the decimal point, I don't really need to write it down. So my answer would just be 70. What about then if I'm dividing by 100? Well, I can see that 100 has 2 zeros in it, and therefore I'm moving 2 place value to the right. So my 700 this time is going 1, 2 place value to the right. It's going to end up in my ones column. The 0 again, the 0 here and the 0 here would end up after the decimal point. And the zeros after the decimal point, we don't need to worry about unless there are digits after them. So that's just a quick reminder. And now the super duper quick way, remember, is I can just say, okay, well, if I have a number, really what I can do is just, I've got 10 there, so I can divide by 10, I take off 1 of the zeros. Or if I'm dividing it by 100, so I've got 2 zeros there, they cancel each other out. Okay, that was just a reminder because we are going to be dividing multiples of 100 by 100 in this lesson. So remember, a percentage is not only used to work out how many things there are out of 100, it's also a way of representing parts of a whole group, just like we do with fractions. In the last lesson, which I hope you've done before you've started this lesson, if you haven't, please go back and do it. We spoke about how to find the percentage of a number. There are lots of different ways. This way is the easiest. And this is the way that we are practicing fluency for in this lesson. Step 1, divide the number in the question by 100 to find 1% of that number. Step 2, multiply that answer by the percentage in the question. Let's apply this to a few questions. I have 12% of 600 is equal to what? Let me put it through the step-by-step guide. 600. So step 1, divide the number by 100 to find 1% of it. 600, remember I'm talking about the number in the question, not the percentage. 600 divided by 100 is 6. Now, step 2, multiply that answer by the percentage in the question. 6, the answer, what's the percentage in the question? 12. 6 multiplied by 12 is equal to 72. Therefore, 12% of 600 is equal to 72. Pause the video now and have a go at this one on your own. Okay, welcome back. Let's go through it together as a class, shall we? 8% of 800. Let me put it through my step-by-step guide. I firstly want to find what 1% of 800 is. To do that, I divide it by 100. 800 divided by 100 is equal to 8. Step 2, multiply that answer by the percentage in the question. So my answer here was 8. I'm multiplying it by the percentage in the question, which was 8%. So I don't need to write out percent, I can just write 8 multiplied by 8 is equal to 64. Therefore, 8% of 800 is equal to 64. Last one for you to have a go on your own. Pause the video now. Welcome back. This time, I am finding 15% of 3,500. Step 1, divide the number by 100. 3,500 divided by 100 is equal to 35. And knowledge of place value coming in really handy here. Step 2, multiply that answer by the percentage in the question. 35 multiplied by 15. Do I know my 15 times tables off the top of my head? No, I don't. So how am I going to set this question out? As a column. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 3 is 15. Add the 2, 17. I'm now multiplying by 10, so I need a place value holder. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. Add the answers together. 5 add 0 is 5. 7 add 5 is 12. 1 add 3 add 1 is 5. So this bit took me a little bit longer because I had to stop and do a written method. But I was just working out that 35 multiplied by 15 is equal to 525. Therefore, 15% of 3,500 is 525. For some questions in this task, I'm going to encourage you to use a calculator. you do the steps exactly the same, but rather than having to do this complicated bit, since your learning objective is to understand percentages, not to practice column multiplication, I am happy for you to use a calculator for that bit, that second bit of the calculation. For example, I might get a question that looks like this. Now, I would have to do, following the step by step, I would do 315 divided by 100 is 3.15. Then I'm doing 3.15 multiplied by 17. You will learn how to do questions like that using a column method in year 6. For now, I'm happy for you to use a calculator for this question. If I use my calculator to do 3.15 multiplied by 17, I would get the answer 53.55. Again, you can pause here and have a practice of this one if you want, remembering to follow the step-by-step guide. Now, you can stop here if you want and go over to the independent task, because the independent task is just asking you to do that. I would suggest that you don't really need to use a calculator for any of challenge 1. I have made the questions so that they are all, you can see the percentages, none of them is greater than 12, and we know our times table is up to 12. So we are filling it out step by step, following the step-by-step guide that I've shown you in the video. Challenge 2 is optional. Challenge 2 you can do using a calculator, using the method that we just spoke about. Those of you who I know like to have lots of different methods to work things out might be interested to know some of the following. Here are then some useful tips and tricks to find out percentages. Number 1, as we have already discussed, is looking at common percentages. So if we have, for example, a 50%, we know is the same as a half. I'm not going to go through all of them. Some that we are really familiar with. If we have questions that ask us to do these things, find 50% or 25%, 10% of something, we know that they're equivalent to those. So those are always something to look out for in a question. We know that already. Sometimes we might get asked to find a percentage. Say we might get asked to find 6% of 50. We could use the method that I've already taught you in this lesson. It's absolutely fine. It might interest you to know, though, that the inverse, by that I mean switching it around, is the same. So it might take us a while to work out 6% of 50. It's much easier to find 50% of 6. 50% of 6, half of 6, is 3. And if you worked it out by doing 50 divided by 100 to get 0.5, 0.5 times 6 is also 3. So sometimes switching the fraction round might help. Last but not least is subtracting the difference. Sometimes we might get a question which asks us to find, say, 99% of 300. So obviously what we would do if we were using our step-by-step guide is we would do 300 divided by 100, which is 3, and then 3 times 99, which is 297. It might be a lawful lot easier for us to work out, well, I know that I can find 1% of 300 is 3, and I could just take that away from the original 300. Little tricks like that will come across as we do revision and things like that, but you don't need to know any of those. All you need to know for your independent task, for challenge 1, is to follow the step-by-step guide. So don't get too confused with that last bit. That was just a little bit extra for anyone that was interested or curious to learn some tricks and tips. But the main thing that we all need to know is this step-by-step guide of how to find percentages. Over to you.